episode of the Midwest Cannabis Podcast. Today we will be discussing the Illinois News Joint. It's a publication based out of Illinois here. And today I'm also joined by Jason Brown, who is the editor-in-chief. How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I guess just to kick it off, where can people find the Illinois News Joint? I know you have a website, social media. Where's the best place for people to locate you?
IllinoisNewsJoint.com is the best place, which is our publication, and everything we do basically feeds off of that. So everything that we publish on our social media outlets and everything comes off of that.
Okay. And how did the Illinois News Joint, I guess, when and how did the Illinois News Joint get started?
Try to been able to condense the story a little bit. I have worked for newspapers for 20 years. So one of the newspapers I worked for was family owned, and it was a county paper. So I worked there after I graduated undergraduate, and worked there for 4 years. Then I went back to grad school and then just worked for him on and off. Then when I moved back in the area here, I started working for them again, but he was wanting to get out. So right before COVID hit, he sold it. He told me, months in advance that he was going to sell. So I wanted to do something like this, based off of it's called Smile Politely. It's a local cultural magazine here in Champaign, an online magazine. And I liked what they do and how they did their site and how independent and everything it was. So I basically told my boss, I want to do something like Illinois News Joint, but I need a real website, because that's really what sets you apart. So he hooked me up with the website guy who did his newspaper website, who is cannabis friendly, and he built $5,000+ website for free.
Wow.
Basically just said, if I do this, you better be serious at what you're doing, and go at it. So once he built the site, it took a little while. We started on the first day of Illinois' legalization.
Okay.
So we've been publishing for 2.5 years now. And the first year, first months, we didn't really have anything going, because, we're just publishing. I was trying to fill up review series and stuff like that to get content up, make it look well lived in and stuff. Then the pandemic hit and I lost a bunch of freelance writing work, and I just thought I'm going to put a lot more time into this and started posting, instead of once every 3 days, every other day, or I'm trying to get closer to every day. And then the cannabis cups came to Illinois, and I had a lot of the cups reviewed, whatever the products were in the cups. Once that happened, everyone who bought a cup started Googling it, and then the ones we'd reviewed, started popping up, and they kind of blew up our SEOs for our website, and kind of set us off. And then once we did that, it just started climbing every day since. And then this year, or at the end of last year, I quit all my other jobs and started doing this full time.
Oh, nice. Congratulations. That's really cool, man. And so, how would you suggest somebody that wants to get into blogging about, writing articles about cannabis products, where would you direct them? How should they get started, would you say?
We're always looking for writers who want to write for us. We have, kind of a basic template that we do for reviews that you can follow and stuff. But it just depends. What I would say is, if you're wanting into the industry, find what you do well and start doing it, and start putting out the content or whatever it is, the service or whatever you're providing. Do the daily grind and work at it. That's really, there's no magic bullet to getting into, the industry. Basically, it's just like any other industry, any other work industry you're getting into. You have to work your ass off and be able to grind every day and have confidence that you're gonna turn something out positive and it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. And so you've been around the Illinois legalization and written about the Illinois legalization since it happened. Have you seen things here in Illinois evolve? I've only been here for a year now, here in Chicago. But have you seen things evolve, or have things kind of just stayed stagnant? What do you think about the Illinois cannabis market right now?
When it all started, I was reading a lot of studies and stuff like that. And basically we're saying a full mature cannabis market takes 3 to 5 years to get developed. So 5 years basically. I think Illinois is on more of a 7 to 9 year program. We're
Okay.
just so far behind in
Yeah.
from cultivators to craft growers to a lot of other things that other legal states already have and are working on and doing. We're still trying to get there. Uh, but at the same time, it's just different. Every state is different. Every state has their own flaws and their own pros and cons for it. A lot more pros or a lot more cons for some.
Yeah.
But Illinois, I didn't really expect anything different out of Illinois than what we already have right now.
Yeah. I got you. I got you. And then, so what would you say will be the next step forward? Like, is there any, do you have an idea of what could progress the market either maybe a little bit faster or what direction it needs to go to progress?
I think a good first step would be to get these craft growers, that have the license now going and growing and competing. Once we have more cultivators in Illinois, which we're stuck on, I don't know what it is now, 14, um, that'll open it up and actually have some real competition. And real competition is what's going to, helps lower the prices and makes, product better because you have to have it or you won't sell it.
Yeah.
So it just again where we're at, just early market, and a lot of things going on that are just the cannabis industry is so new, and there's really no laws for a lot of gray area things that you're doing that the cultivators are doing, the dispensaries are doing. There's other states that you can follow some models, but again, every state is so different through legally and how the state is handling the legalization of cannabis. Then what we do here doesn't really matter what they do in California because we're just not the
Right.
same.
Right. Yeah. And I so obviously we know there's like tons of issues and hardships like dealing in the cannabis market, which you and I are both dealing in. But what would you say like kind of keeps you going? Like what is your motivating factor to be writing in the cannabis industry and to be struggling with making cannabis content in the cannabis industry?
I, I and we take it extremely serious that I am documenting the first years of the cannabis industry in Illinois. Everybody we go and hang out with, every event we go to, these are the people who are on the ground and level of what's going on, and that goes for the MSOs to the home growers to grow shops to all of these. I mean, these are all spaces that are expanding and getting filled. I mean, eventually it's going to get saturated, but right now Illinois is still expanding. There's a lot of businesses. We've seen dozens and dozens of business start and fail. We've seen, there's still businesses and social media things that are out there that have been out there since we've started.
Hmm.
It's just, again, what I always say, you have to be in the industry for the right reasons and you have to love the plant. So it's important to me as just a person in general that whatever job I've ever had, I want that job to at least have some kind of positive effect on the society and community in general. Reporting gets that a little bit. Teaching was a lot more um, instant gratification and stuff for that aspect. And I want it the same here. So what we're doing, we're trying to really seriously provide a true service to those who want to, excuse me, know more about the cannabis industry or just cannabis in general, and what's out there. More than anything, we want to be some kind of educational touchstone for people in Illinois to see what we're doing and not doing in Illinois.
Got you. And I know you're in Champaign, you said, and I'm up in Chicago. Do you see a lot of different things happening in different even cities in like in the state of Illinois? Or is it kind of like a overarching theme for the whole state, would you say, that you've seen so far?
Well, I mean, I always say that out-of-staters think Chicago is Illinois, and it's not.
Right.
There's a whole central Illinois that's prairie grass flatlands. There's old southern Illinois that has rolling hills and some of the best nature areas there are in the United States.
Hmm.
So just that fact alone makes it different. The people who live in Chicago or the people are different from people who live in southern Illinois. Um, they're raised different, they're in different areas, they're different environments.
Yeah.
So that alone makes it different in Illinois. But I will say that, there are the Chicago kind of events and stuff out there. There's usually the city events, then there's the suburb events, and then the Central Illinois, we have, a lot of Peoria cannabis community has a lot of events, Peoria Pekin area. And then Central Illinois and Champaign-Urbana is starting to add. And then in Southern Illinois, it's usually Carbondale is the one who is, like they have right now, the Hemp Hops and Shrooms Festival that's coming up here next month.
Okay.
That's big, that'll be a really exciting free event to the public that, has not been like, well, I mean, they've had it before, but not like in the iteration that it is now.
Got you. Got you. And you guys go, like your staff and the writers that you write with, you guys go to a lot of live events, like
Yes, we try to partner with everyone that we want to be a part of. So yes, and we'll be there with the booth. So stop on by and say hi.
Okay, okay. And I guess that kind of leads me to my next question. And what is next? Do you have any next plans for the Illinois News Joint? Any type of moves that you're trying to make that you want to at least share on the podcast?
I mean, our goals are just to keep doing the same thing:
Okay.
educate, incorporate education, academia, and then cover everything from the whole industry. We're not interested in just covering one part of the industry.
Mhm.
And then just keep expanding. I mean, we've expanded every month, every quarter from day one, and and we're not stopping. And the more content we have, the more writers we develop and work for us. I have really two really great writers who, without them, it just I wouldn't be where I'm at now, and we wouldn't be where we're at now
I
collectively.
see.
So it's never. I mean, it is me doing the website, but it's never. You can't do it yourself. I mean, there's
Right.
always help involved. If that comes from the web guy or just a mentor, or my writers who are just killing it lately. So to help me focus on some other projects that we're trying to do. So I'm really aware of my bandwidth and what I can and can't do every day. How much hours can I put in, and where's that
For
best,
sure.
you know, where's that work best suited for? I mean, is it
Yeah.
writing for 2 hours, or is it writing an email for an hour and a half to one person?
I completely agree. In my space, we're just making video and things like that. It's a huge balance of where we need to be really like allocating our time because every day only so much content can go out, only so much content you may even want to put out that day. And sometimes other things just need to get handled. So I completely understand what you're saying.
I mean, I keep saying I'm working literally more hours than I've probably ever worked, but I'm less stressed and I enjoy the work. I mean, I've had a lot more shittier jobs than sitting down late at night and smoking weed for a review.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are much worse things out there. And before the podcast started, we were talking about you were partnering with SIU, correct?
Yes, that's the SIU Cannabis Center.
Okay, you want to get
Um,
into that a little bit?
Yeah, they basically are. I think they're going to be one of the best cannabis organizations in academia in the United States. They're in on it early. They have really good support from municipalities, from the university, from the community, and it takes almost all of those to really have something, really good in the cannabis industry.
Hmm.
And Dr. LeMay, who runs the program, is super. He's we are two obsessed people about the plan. I'll just say that. And I
Okay.
really like what he's trying to do and the broad range he's keeping with the Cannabis Center. So that as soon as we found out that they had one, plus I'm an alumni, so I graduated SIU
Okay.
with a master's degree. So I want to be a part of what they're doing. And again, I've said it 100 billion times that we want to incorporate academia into the cannabis industry. We believe that's one of the best ways to normalize the plant.
I completely agree. And it's one of the best ways to have, I feel like, a organized set of prepared workers entering into like the cannabis space after people start getting prepared because a lot of times there's like no previous knowledge when you're entering your first job now, I feel like in the cannabis space. But if there's some preparation before that, like with most jobs, people will be more prepared, more educated on the plant as they're entering the market.
And again, we're so early in our market. There's just a lot of people who are may not be interested now, will be 6 months from now. And there's a lot of people who weren't interested, a year and a half ago. They're now coming around thinking, well, maybe I'm going to go to, a dispensary and pick up an eighth and try it or whatever it is, or eat
Yeah.
some gummies or whatever.
Yeah, the stigma is definitely starting to lift, and it happens at completely different speeds for everybody, because I can't imagine if there was already like shipping, for example, or if there was like mail order, because I know a lot of people who just don't like walking into dispensaries. I've met a good amount of, even like him, when I was living in Texas, there would be people who would be scared to try CBD because they had to walk into a store or something like that. So even little things and little barriers like that are definitely going to change over time, I feel like, and open up the demographic who's interested, I guess you could say.
Yes, I mean, again, what I always say is we're legal now, so there's got to be a mass market, and there's going to be a mass market. So there's going to be people who know nothing about it, and there's going to be people who, are going to fight the dispensaries and the MSOs every chance they get.
Yeah.
Again, that's just part of the entire industry that we are trying to cover.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's just a part of like the free market. Like, I guess it's not really in the free market, but as it opens up to being more of a free market thing, and that's just kind of what has to happen. There has to be big companies, small companies, people trying to take over other companies. Like, it's just kind of how all business works.
Yes, I mean it's corporate now, so there's
Yeah.
corporations who are going to do as much you know, capitalism as they can and make as much money as they can and grab as much power as they can. That's just part of the system.
Right. Right. And I know you are obviously called the Illinois News Joint, but do you ever venture over to any of the legal states or anything like that? Do you like visiting other ones?
I have not yet. I mean, Missouri had medical when I was working down there and had an office down there, but
Okay.
I wasn't medical and they don't reciprocate our cards. So,
Right.
but I know, a couple people who have cards down there and stuff. Um, I just haven't gone out and done much
I
traveling.
hear
So
you.
outside Illinois, I'm all over the place in Illinois. If I did, I would definitely probably contact places and see if they wanted to work together and then do something as some kind of travel log or some kind of travel, you know, outside the state type of article or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be really cool because I'm interested when places kind of like New York start to develop because they're even behind Illinois some. But I'm just curious about what places like that are going to be like, because it's so interesting how like each state has a completely separate market. So when you go state to state, you really at this point don't know what to expect. But in the future, it's kind of just setting up to be completely different, even like cultures and markets and everything.
Yes, and I always say it's like a petri dish for each state to see what's working well, what's not working well, how to adjust it,
Mhm.
that type of thing.
Well, if you were going to tell somebody that was like entering the cannabis market, kind of what to be wary for, what to watch out for, if they're a big thing or a big couple things, is there anything you would warn anybody about?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of scammers in the industry, but that's every industry. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, slimy grifters. But at the
Yeah.
same time, there's just a lot of really, really, really good people in the industry who are doing it for the right reasons.
Mhm.
You basically gravitate towards people I vibe with, we partner with. If we don't vibe with you, if we don't like what you're doing or how you're doing it, we step away.
I hear you. I hear you. And earlier I was reading that you guys work with veterans, right?
Yes, we have it's called a Friend and Deed program. So
Okay.
we basically help veterans have access to cannabis. We are partnered with actually the compassion clinic people who
Okay.
they will help us get veterans medical cards so they can grow their own medicine. And then once they have a card, then we have a genetic library that we have that a lot of breeders and seed banks have donated for the program. And then we have grow shops that we're partnered with and other businesses and entities that help along the way. Some other vet programs that we also work with and like vet gardens. So again, it's just one of those things. I think we're providing a service, but it isn't enough for, a positive, to put some kind of positive out there to the community. And to me, it's not. And this just adds on to what we do in that aspect.
You said it's not enough positive? Is that what you said?
Just being a reporter is not enough for me. Being a teacher, an academic at university, that was enough. I mean, that, you're helping people daily if you want to or not, or you're hurting people daily. You can do both.
Yeah.
And there's other jobs I've had. The jobs that I've had where I'm not doing something positive for society or just people in general.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it, and I don't like myself, and I just life sucked then. It just has to be a part of my life somehow to do something like this, and we have other stuff in the works too, because I believe in it. And if you're not doing something like this, or or trying to help people like us doing stuff like this, then I don't, that's fine. But I think it's something that if you're not doing it, it doesn't have to be in the cannabis industry. This can be in anything in life, period. I'm not the type of person who donates to big charities or anything like that. I'm more of a person-to-person donated type person. So the Friend Indeed program, it's not some blanket thing where we're just trying to gather all the veterans we can and make them grow weed. It's just a personalized individual thing. When we contact people or we're in contact with people, we help them get what they need, the individual things they need. If that's a light or grow area help or genetics or whatever it is, then that's what we do.
Okay, that's really cool. Well, and the other thing we were talking about before the podcast began was growing, and it's actually something I'm personally interested in doing once I get a medical card out here. Do you have any suggestions on getting started with the grow process at all?
I am not the one to ask because I've only been growing for a year and a half. So I always say I'm just an infant in this. I don't, again, I'm not pretending to be a master grower or anything. I'm just learning along the way. I mean, what I always say is what I've learned, and the metaphor I use is the plants will tell you what's wrong or right. And you just have to know the language and try to learn the language. And that just comes with practice and doing daily touching the plant, being part of the plant and everything like that. So the metaphor I use is, if a dog owner and a dog that you've had for 10 years comes up to you and whines in two different ways, one of them, the dog's hungry, or one, the dog wants out. The dog's language. And so the plant's the same way. You just have to learn the different language and how the plant's communicating to you, and then adjust to it.
Got you. But you would recommend people who are thinking about trying to grow, you'd recommend them getting started?
I would always recommend growing, no doubt. I'm not a green thumb. My sister gave me an aloe plant and I killed it.
Okay.
So when I was starting all this, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work out. But once you start doing it, people kept saying, "Oh, it's spiritual and everything," and I kind of laughed it off as hippy dippy stuff, and it is. There's something that's meditative. It's healing. I've started growing a bunch of other stuff since then. So it's not just cannabis. I have other plants and flowers and mainly companion plants that help my grow.
Yeah, I see. And Jason, I guess about you a little bit. What do you like to do outside of the cannabis space? What's some like a fun hobby outside of the writing and the work you do in the cannabis space? What do you like to do?
I'm not sure, really. The older I get, the less and less things that make me excited. So there's just not that many things that I want to do. I don't really have a bucket list anymore. I mean, a lot of things I want to do, I make sure I try to do them when I was younger before I got married. So what I basically want to do eventually in the long term is just put my mark on this industry in a positive way and record what Illinois is doing. So when we look back in 10 years, there's some kind of record of how Illinois developed throughout its first decade of legalization.
Mm.
I got an MFA in creative writing. I have a novel and a poetry book and stuff like that.
Okay.
I've almost put that aside and stuff, but eventually I will go back to that, and that might be a bigger project I might do later, is some kind of book or something like that about the industry.
Oh, that'd be cool. Like a recap on like the first 5 year or the first like introductory years of it or something like that. That'd be really cool.
Yes, because they come out, there's three different kind of organizations that have studies every year, and again, the cannabis industry is just going to be more and more studies, that for the plant, for things that don't touch the plant, social studies, all kinds of stuff that are coming out.
Got you, got you. And as we kind of begin to wrap up the podcast, is there anything that the Illinois News Joint is doing actively now that I didn't mention or anything that you'd like to shout out or talk about at all?
Oh, we have reviews, grow journals that we're putting up. Our scientific grow journals is kind of what we're rotating to. So we're working again with the Cannabis Center and SIU and the University of Illinois to try to basically procure any businesses who want to do independent studies through the universities.
Okay.
We help them do the studies, and then we publish the studies in a grow journal, to basically let everybody know. I mean, we want to be open access to everybody. We will never charge for what we publish and what we do. We believe that the information should be, free in some way. I mean, it's always got to be paid somehow.
Right.
But for us, I mean, that's the point, is to educate and let people know exactly what's going on in Illinois or what's not going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and how long do you think it will be before we're looking at like more universities accepting like cannabis education and partnering with companies and stuff like that? Do you think that's long term or do you think that's rapidly about to start happening now?
It's already happening. I mean, there's already 4 or 5 that's universities that are doing. And matter of fact, my Facebook feed keeps jamming in the UMSL and Wash U stuff that's got some kind of
I've seen
cannabis
a few.
classes. So all the universities,
I've seen has been doing it too. Yeah.
yeah. So all the universities are trying to jump on it. They're trying to. There's going to be money in it too. So it's not like it's not money in it. So they're going to be offering certificates. We have in Illinois, I can't remember. I think it's 8 colleges that have the hemp licenses, so they can teach hemp growing and grow the actual plant instead of having to grow tomato plants. So it's still legal for them to do it and teach it. And then we have, like, the University of Illinois has their own hemp program, and that's, a lot of universities have hemp programs. So again, it's going, and it will be part of academia and every other aspect. That cannabis is going to be just like any other business. And it touches a lot of aspects of life in general.
Yeah, yeah, because we still haven't really cracked open the hospitality and lounge section. Like certain states that have been legal now for like 10, 15, even like Colorado is now really just breaking into the hospitality section. So I feel like that'll change a lot also as the states are able to, I mean, if people are able to smoke in like more public locations, things like that, and it's kind of more regulated in that way. Because I think it's
Yes, we have. There's a couple lounges now in Southern Illinois, and then there's the Mundelein Lounge, and there's, we're starting to get those too. And you can apply for license for those. Those aren't actually as hard to get as all the other licenses and stuff. So, what I always say is, it's the industry has to pull Illinois along with us to make us show them what direction the cannabis industry needs to go. And there has to be some kind of balance of, home growers, advocates, people who are, trying to fight for laws that they believe in, and fight against people who are not fighting for those laws or whatever it is. It can't just be the MSOs controlling everything, or all patient care homegrowns controlling everything. It has to be some kind of balance that checks itself. So if there's an MSO that's not doing something right, then the CannaFan people will go after them. If it's
Yeah.
CannaFan people who are not doing stuff right, usually there's people that go after them. There's got to be some kind of checks and balance. I always say, if you want one entity, to take care of everything, if it's the government or if it's MSOs or if it's private craft growers, that's not going to happen. There's just so many things involved in the industry, and once you get into politics of it, that's just a billion more things that are involved,
Right.
effects and variables that go into it.
All right. Well, Jason, I really appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Midwest Cannabis Podcast. Guys, check out the Illinois News Joint if you are in the state of Illinois, or if you're in any state, you just want to read about some interesting cannabis reviews, news, things like that. Jason, I appreciate you joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, I appreciate you for tuning into the live stream, and we'll see you guys next time.